Hey everyone, welcome back to The Explainer. Today we are actually jumping straight into the physical science and the fundamental mechanics of a truly explosive sport, volleyball. We're taking the core concepts of biomechanics, momentum, and body positioning directly from the textbook chapter and mapping them right onto the court. By the end of our time together, you're going to see every serve, pass, and spike in a completely new light.
All right, let's look at the game plan. We are structuring our analysis of the chapter to follow the exact chronological arc of an actual volleyball point. We'll start with the fundamentals, move into serving, passing, setting, and then wrap it all up with spiking.
Section 1, the fundamentals of volleyball. Let's get grounded in the basics before we dive into the deep biomechanics. Okay, so the ultimate objective? Simple on paper. Just send that ball over the net and make it land squarely on the opponent's court. But physically, it's a massive, massive challenge. You've got teams of 6, specialized roles like spikers, setters, and liberos, and only 3 touches to manipulate the ball's momentum and geometry to your advantage. It's literally a game of rapid, high-speed problem solving. Moving on to Section 2, serving. Every explosive rally's got to start somewhere, right? Which means we need to learn the physical dynamics of the serve first. Now, what's really interesting about this chapter is the rhythm it uses. Every single technical skill we're breaking down today falls into this super satisfying, predictable 3-step groove: stance, execution, and follow-through. To master the physics of the game, you absolutely have to master this sequence. So, applying that rhythm to the underhand serve, notice the anatomical stance. You've got the non-dominant foot just a bit ahead, toes pointing dead forward. The ball is resting in that non-dominant hand, kind of slightly cupped so it's not rolling all over the place. But the real biomechanical key here? The ball is held nice and low, right at the upper thigh level, directly in front of the hitting arm. Knees are deeply bent to drop that center of gravity, establishing perfect balance before the strike.
But then, completely contrast that with the overhead serve. Totally different beast. Here, the execution relies on a near vertical toss with a non-dominant hand. The hitting arm pulls way back next to the head, and then boom, leading with the elbow, you smash the ball forward. And pay attention to the contact point. You're using the solid heel, the real base of the palm, to transfer a massive amount of forward force.
All right, circle time for a second. Think about the physics behind those 2 very different swings. You have this smooth, pendulum-like swing for the underhand, and then this coiled-up, vertical snap for the overhead. So how exactly does the human body store up potential energy in that bent stance and drawn back arm, only to instantly explode into kinetic energy when striking the ball? Keep that physics puzzle in the back of your mind. If you want to actually put that kinetic energy to the test, the chapter gives us this brilliant practice drill. Picture drawing a giant pentagon right in the middle of the opponent's court, edges touching the baselines and sidelines. You serve 10 overheads, aiming exclusively for that pentagon. Landing inside, you score. Outside, 0 points for you. It's a fantastic way to isolate raw power from actual precision accuracy. Section 3, passing. Because as we just saw with all that serving energy, raw power is absolutely nothing without control. And the absolute foundation of that control? Your hands. It's wild how different the grips are. For the underhand pass, your hands come together, one overlapping the other, forming this semi-closed fist where your thumbs are perfectly parallel, pointing slightly down. But then, the overhead pass grip, totally open. Hands are up above the forehead, thumbs and index fingers forming a precise little triangle. The ball is bouncing off the fingertips here, absolutely not the palms. When executing that underhand pass, it's all about the low stance. Knees are bent, spine straight, but leaning just a bit forward. Dropping your hips like this is a total game changer. It gives you a vastly superior center of balance to absorb all that incoming force from a serve. Oh, and a crucial communication tip from the text: when you step into this stance to intercept, you literally have to shout, "Mine," nice and loud. Let your teammates know you've got it. Now, to execute an overhead pass, you're intercepting the ball much higher up, specifically at the midline of your body right above your hairline. And you're not just using your arms here. No way. You are extending those bent knees, straightening the legs out, and pushing upward with the force of your palms to drive the ball exactly where it needs to go. Your whole body works together like a perfectly synchronized spring. Let's take a quick breather and reflect on that. We just talked about overlapping fists and triangle fingers. But what other shapes are we creating in our joints during these passes? Think about the locked straight arm angle of that underhand pass, or the bent spring-loaded knees. Maintaining those specific rigid bodily shapes is literally what dictates your ball control and trajectory. If your shapes break down, your pass breaks down. It's that simple.
Moving right along to Section 4, Setting. We've controlled the ball. Now let's use that control to boost and attack. Setting, or boosting as it's often called, is a highly specialized skill. It's all about ensuring the ball moves perfectly and sometimes unexpectedly for your spiker. Following our trusty 3-step rhythm, the setter prepares by bending their elbows outward, right near the forehead, creating a super stable cup-shaped platform. Then, depending on the pass they receive, they execute an overhand pass to set the ball high or low near the net. Finally, they extend their upper limbs fully towards the target to follow through.
So how on earth do you practice that kind of pinpoint midair accuracy? The chapter details this really fun drill called the bucket challenge. You basically stick a raised table near the net pole and put a bucket right on top. A feeder passes the ball to you, the setter, and you have to push that ball so it arcs at least a foot over the net and drops straight into the bucket. It's a genius way to visualize the exact trajectory you need for a flawless set.
But setting isn't just purely physical mechanics. It is the chess match of volleyball. Seriously, think about this. A setter has to instantly read the entire physical space on the court. How do you dodge the opponent's blockers with your set? You have to constantly calculate the height, the speed, and figure out which of your spikers has the absolute best angle to convert that rally into a point. It is high-speed geometry in action, for sure. Which brings us to Section 5, Spiking, the explosive climax of the rally.
Spiking is where you forcefully strike that ball over the net directly at the opponent's floor. The stance? You gotta position yourself slightly under or behind the falling ball. Then, raise your dominant arm with the elbow bent just slightly behind your head. This creates an incredibly powerful torque-loaded angle. Then, bam, you uncoil all that potential energy and strike. It's the ultimate, satisfying release of all the momentum built up over the entire rally. So we've tracked the physics of the ball all the way from the opening serve to that final crushing spike. But I want to leave you with a final thought to really chew on. Think about those rigid stances, the locked elbows, the spring-loaded knees, and that entire kinetic chain of energy we broke down from the chapter today. How might mastering these exact fundamental physical shapes translate to other fast-paced sports? Because let's face it, the physics of the human body are universal. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer. Keep analyzing the mechanics around you, and I'll catch you next time.